Okay, Mr. Mayor, I guess the first question, I just want to do a rehash kind of the year, how things have gone, and hit a few topical questions first.
Sure.
And the biggest, obviously, the talk of the last few days, you kicking off your run for a third term.
Yeah.
Have you officially, kind of come out and told folks what you plan on?
Yeah, we've been gathering signatures on petitions for last several months and have talked with folks throughout the year about my intention to run. I'm excited about it. Excited about sharing some of the great success and the work that we've done in my first 2 terms, but I think I owe the voters too a vision for a third term. The things that we're going to focus on: safety, housing, health, really trying to continue to grow the winner's circle here in Columbus. We want to be the most prosperous community in the country, and we want everybody in this community to share in that prosperity. So excited to share that vision with the public during next year's campaign as well.
And tell me, since you mentioned development, we can kind of start off there. We've had a lot of development over the last year, and you've been a part of some big projects as far as affordable housing.
Yeah.
Just on the topic of that, why is that so important? Because we've seen with the recession, inflation, and everything else, housing is a big issue for a lot of folks.
Well, we really have a supply problem here. We haven't had enough units coming to market at all price points since before the Great Recession. And that issue is just compounded over the last 12 years or so. And so our community continues to grow. As you know, 100,000 people moved just into the city limits, much more into the region in the last 10 years, and we haven't been building enough housing. So that's why I've called for us as a region to double the number of units coming to market every year for the next 15 years and invest $1 billion in housing. That's how we can make sure that people who have called Columbus home from birth and that are coming to Columbus for incredible jobs with Honda or Intel or many of the other, we've had 2 of the best economic development years in the history of our city. We're going to continue to grow. So how can we do that dynamically, dramatically, but inclusively as well? And so that's going to be a big focus of ours. It has been thus far. Very grateful to the people of Columbus that overwhelmingly supported our bond package. As you know, we had a $200 million issue on the ballot that passed with overwhelming support for us to be able to invest in more housing.
Is there a fear that folks could be priced out of the city? Because we see all these developments, Short North downtown area,
Sure.
and different developments around the city, and I mean, rent is sky high. Mm-hmm. Is there that fear there that we have to look out for those folks on the margins?
Absolutely, but it also speaks to the supply issue. If we had more supply, go back to Econ 101 about supply and demand. Demand continues to grow. We need much more in the supply. We need more in the pipeline at every price point, by the way. Market rate, attainable, affordable, workforce, everywhere along the line. So I believe that we can grow dramatically, but inclusively and equitably. But it's going to require us to do some things differently. So we're rewriting our zoning code for the first time in 70 years. And it's something that's very important because our zoning code really guides how we're going to grow and develop as a city. And we're going to have to embrace density. Density is the #1 contributor to affordability. And we're going to have to grow differently in the next 10 years than we have in the last 20 or 30 years. So do I need to redo that?
No.
Okay.
You're good.
Okay. Where was I at there?
You were just talking about density.
Yeah, and rewriting of the zoning code is so important, but it's going to be hard, difficult work. But my challenge is to the rest of the region. This can't be housing can't just be a Columbus issue. I need our partners in suburban governments within Franklin County, adjacent counties as well, to be part of this solution. It really needs to be a regional approach to make sure that we're providing great places for people to live in great communities where they're able to access some of these incredible jobs we're creating here as well.
Along with housing and development, safety and security always a big issue, and folks, we've talked to you about that, especially, crimes in certain communities involving teens. Just kind of discuss, I know the city has poured literally millions of dollars into programming. Talk about some of the programming that you guys have implemented over the past year to kind of deal with some of these issues.
Well, it's been our top priority, and we really believe that public safety, neighborhood safety, you have to have a comprehensive and balanced approach. So you have to invest in prevention, intervention, and enforcement, and we're doing all of those things. We put a good amount of our rescue plan dollars into prevention and interventive work. But we're also investing in our police and fire services. We've made historic investments in classes, and I proposed another 3 classes for next year's budget because we need to invest in the Division of Police as we reform it at the same time. We're starting to see some signs of success. Homicides and violent crime are down, pretty dramatically compared to where we were last year and even the year before that. But this is our vision. We want to be the safest big city in America, and we're not there yet. And so we have to continue to invest in things that are working, and things that we determine aren't working, we've got to stop doing those things and invest in new and innovative approaches to making sure that everyone feels safe around our community.
As a mayor, for you personally, obviously a lot of these crimes that we've covered lately involve, teenagers, fatal shootings, robberies, the Kia boys, that sort of thing. How painful is it for you, seeing kids involved in this sort of stuff?
Very. I mean, I'm not just a mayor, I'm a father. I've got a 12-year-old at home, and to think that young people as young as my daughter are either the victims or the perpetrators of crime is something that we all have to own up to. And this is not the police's job to solve this problem. The community, everybody in this community has a role to play. Parents have to step up. Faith leaders need to step up. Our nonprofit partners need to step up. We can't police our way out of what we're seeing here and in cities around the country. And we've got to be more aggressive and innovative about stopping the flow of guns and firearms into the hands of young people. And that's why we've been holding hearings here. We're going to continue to take aggressive action to try to stop and disrupt the proliferation. I mean, the amount of guns that have flowed onto America's streets and in the city streets in the last 20 years, as well as just truly reckless gun policy at the state level, we're seeing, the results of what has happened over the last 20 years. We know when there was an assault weapons ban nationally from 1994 to 2004, gun violence, particularly with assault weapons and other semi-automatics, went down dramatically. We've got to do our part. If the state won't stand up to the extremists, we have to do our part. At least they can get out of our way to take action, and that's exactly what we're doing. We had hearings on it. We're going to be acting on that legislation in the coming weeks.
And speaking of action, I know the city attorney's office has taken action against certain apartment complexes and areas where they've had issues. One of the main issues is Wedgwood Village Apartments. Mm-hmm. I know they've had some issues. I think just the other day a teenager was shot in that area. What would you say to those people who live in the community who are frustrated, who say that the city needs to do more, the police need to do more? What would you say to them? We've
invested significant resources into Wedgwood, into programming, law enforcement, intervention, prevention work, but we all need to do more. And I was just talking to an officer the other day that thought that a great location for potential shot spotter expansion would be Wedgwood, and that we need to be continuing to invest in the most innovative, creative ways that can help bring down violence and make that neighborhood safer. And we all have a role to play in that.
I've spoken to Chief Bryant and Assistant Chief Potts on numerous occasions, and I know they're, literally in the streets, on the streets, talking to community members, leaders, kids. How important do you think the mission of the police department is in kind of solving this and what they're doing, putting boots on the ground, so to speak?
Well, I think Chief Bryant has been an incredible transformational leader. I mean, you take a look at where we were just a couple of years ago and where we are now, not just in bringing violence down, but the closure rates that, our Division of Police are doing an amazing job. One of the reasons our closure rates are up so much is that the community is sharing information, because we know it's a very small number of folks that are committing the overwhelming majority of violent crimes in our community. And the community is stepping up, sharing information with police. Our police are closing these cases, getting these folks off the street. But you can't do that unless you're continuing to build trust and build relationships between the Division of Police and the community. And I think Chief Bryant, Assistant Chief Potts, Assistant Chief Botker, and the entire team over there are making some great strides. We got a long way to go. We know that cultural change takes time, and they're continuing to lead those changes. But You take a look at the amount of officers of color, female officers, the cadet program taking off out there, creating that pipeline of Columbus kids from Columbus neighborhoods that are going to join the Division of Police. We're excited about it. The charter changes that were approved by the voters that will allow us to continue to bring the best and the brightest into the Division of Police and Fire. I'm really excited about our future. I was with the chief just on Saturday, and she is really excited about 2023 and all the work that they've got in store.
And, speaking of them, I know you've been on the streets in many of these occasions too. When you go into these communities, what are people saying to you, and what impact do you think it's having to see the mayor actually in these communities too?
Well, it's important. It's important for me to go, into neighborhoods throughout our city and to meet folks in their neighborhood, for them to be able to tell me and show me what's going on and things that need to be addressed in their community. And we're going to continue to do that. I've always said my top 3 priorities are neighborhoods, neighborhoods, neighborhoods. That's why I'm excited in 2023. Our next neighborhood planning effort will start in the Eastland area. So we've done a One Linden neighborhood plan that we've already invested $100 million into realizing and implementing that plan. The Envision Hilltop plan, the Hilltop Early Childhood Center, is going to open in January to help dramatically expand high quality early learning opportunities to children on the Hilltop, in addition to a new police substation on the Hilltop. So the Eastland plan is going to be launched, and that planning program is going to be launched later this year, so that the neighborhood, the community, will drive that planning process, and at the end of the time, we'll have a plan that has been driven and owned by the community, that then we can engage public and other private partners to help fund and realize that plan. So we're excited about what's in store for 2023 and beyond.
And when you talk about these development plans, what your office is doing, what the police department is doing, just individual, families, individuals in these communities, you say this has to be a kind of a teamwork approach to deal with this. What can those people do? Just people, just a regular grandmother in the neighborhood. What can she do to address this?
Well, our One Linden plan was, our number one cheerleader was Miss Peg, and she's a grandmother in Linden who attended every planning session. You can see her fingerprints all over that One Linden plan, and it's making a huge difference. And folks that were involved in the Envisioned Hilltop, and we're going to send out the same call to folks in the Eastland area to be part of that planning process. But I think everybody's got a role to play. Whether or not it's starting a block watch, whether it's mentoring, or if you're a business owner, hiring young people to give them exposure to jobs and opportunity, help them build their portfolio for the future. And faith leaders. Faith leaders have a role to play in maybe providing after-school programming, maybe identifying young people in their congregations that would make for great police officers and firefighters, and getting them involved in, we restarting the POW program for the first time in decades, the Police Athletic League, and we're going to get fire engaged with this as well. Getting young people, we just had a TAPS graduation this week at Johnson Park Middle School, where middle school students have mentors as Columbus police officers. Again, not only just trying to build trust, bridge the divide between police and young people, but also hopefully get some of these incredible young people to think about careers in law enforcement.
From that to kind of the pandemic and moving past it, it appears, I know we're still in the pandemic, sure, but every city, every town, kind of moving along. Are you surprised with how well that Columbus has kind of rebounded in the past, I would say 6 months to a year following the pandemic?
I think the people of Columbus have shown throughout history we're a pretty resilient group. I would say the sun is always rising in Columbus. We always have our eyes on the next horizon, and I think as difficult and as trying as the last couple of years have been, I think we're stronger, we're healthier, we're more resilient as a community than we were even going into it. And so when you have 2 unprecedented years of job creation and economic development, continuing to put our arms around our young people, I would argue that no one was more disproportionately impacted by COVID than our young people. And we're going to have to continue to make restorative investments for them to get caught up, not just academically, but emotionally and developmentally, behaviorally. These young people have taken a lot of hits over the last few years, and we need to continue to wrap our arms around them and invest in them to make sure they understand they have a bright future here or wherever they choose, and that they have a future that's worth investing in.
Another topical question for you. This week, it was announced the OSU president, Dr. Christina Johnson, leaving. When you heard that news, did that come as a surprise to you?
It did. I've gotten to know President Johnson and her wife Veronica over the last several years. We've done some great work together. Really excited about the work that's taken place with STEAM Rising and the Innovation District at Ohio State, and great partnerships as well. The pact that all started previously has continued to make a transformational impact on the Near East Side. Partners across community coming together. That group has really made a huge difference. And so I wish President Johnson all the best. She's been a great partner to the city, and we'll certainly miss her.
For you, as far as the next OSU president, because I'm sure you'll be working closely with that person whenever he or she comes in, what would you like to see in the next leader for the university?
I think continuing to connect the city and the university together. We are thrilled to have Ohio State as part of our community, and we want to continue to see the university, particularly as a land-grant institution, connected, invested, and engaged in what's happening in Columbus neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm. I do have a question to ask you about CMHA too. I know you were appointing a new board appointee. Have you done that yet? Chosen that person?
I believe that process is in place. I'm not sure if the new appointee's been voted on yet.
Okay. What are you looking from that person?
Somebody that's committed to making sure that CMHA is as transparent, as accessible, as responsive to the community as possible, and continuing to further their mission to make sure that housing is affordable and attainable to all of our neighbors here in Central Ohio.
And speaking of that, with housing, we've done stories in the past few weeks about issues with impact and some of their funding, state funding, and I know the city and the county, kind of poured millions in, and they are impacted right now. They're having to kind of shut down some of their housing assistance and utility assistance. Is that something that you guys will look into with impact as far as any sort of further support down the road with them?
Well, certainly, we always take a look at and we demand that all of our partners are transparent and accountable. I think what has happened there, from my understanding, is that we all knew these was going to be short-term, one-time money, and so the staffing was dramatically ramped up to help with folks who were facing the crisis that COVID brought to them, both on the utility front, the rent front. We always knew that, though, this was going to be kind of one-time, shorter-term money. So it was going to be impossible for Impact or any other partner organization to provide long-term, full-time employment for folks when we knew that it was going to be short-term or one-time money.
Mm-hmm. We're entering, I guess, just a few more weeks left of 2022, 2023 ahead.
Yeah.
For the citizens of Columbus, what can they look forward to from your office over the next year?
Redoubling of our commitment to safety. Focus on housing, to focus on health and well-being, quality of life in our neighborhoods. We think we have a great city. What we want to continue to do is make sure that every family and every neighborhood is sharing in our success. We want to grow that winner's circle and make this city the most prosperous and inclusive in America.
And there are efforts underway to kind of make that community a bit safer.
Yeah, I think, it's a very densely populated. There are, thousands of apartment units and folks and living in pretty close quarters over there. And so we want to do everything we can, not just from police resources, but adding safety cameras, contemplating ShotSpotter for that neighborhood as well. Just doing everything we can to make it as safe as possible. Continue to invest in programming for young people, after-school programming, as well as some of the proactive prevention and intervention efforts.
All right, a few lighter questions for you. This past weekend, obviously, the Buckeyes went down to Michigan. How heartbreaking was that?
Well, tough, because we've been waiting 12 months for a little revenge after losing to the Wolverines the year before. But I'm really proud of Coach Day and all those players who have given up so much, made so many sacrifices. Really gave their all. We'd like another shot at them, but I want to congratulate Coach Harbaugh, University of Michigan. It's always tough. It's the mayor of Columbus, but They had a big win, a good win, and I hope it's their last win for a long time.
There you go. And any sort of a holiday message for the people of Columbus?
You know, just that I continue to be grateful for them. You know, the last couple of years have been really tough for me personally and professionally. I've lost my mother, my father, a niece in a tragic car accident. And obviously all of us have been through quite a bit in 2020, 2021, the beginning of 2022. So I just want to thank them for lifting me up, praying for me, continue to step up and do everything they can in their own little ways in neighborhoods across our city. And I think 2023 is going to be one of the best years in the city's history, and very excited about the future.